Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name is Joshua Fields-Milburn.
And I'm Ryan Nicodemus, and together we are the Minimalists.
We've got Malabama in the studio.
Hi, everybody.
And guess who's back? Ladies and gentlemen, TK Coleman.
What? TK back in the house. Yeah.
On the private podcast, we'll talk to him about his wonderful Detroit trip. He was speaking to a bunch of middle school students, high school students. We'll talk about that whole thing. But coming up on this free, public, minimal episode, we're talking to a listener about why it's so difficult to let go. We also have an outstanding lightning round segment, a live stream question, actually a couple live stream questions for you, and a listener tip. You can check out the full, almost 3-hour maximal edition of episode 378, where we answer 4 times the questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. That private podcast episode is out right now at patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free because, say it with me, y'all, advertisements suck. Let's start with our callers. If you have a question or comment for our show, give us a call, 406-219-7839, or better yet, you can email a voice memo with that beautiful sound quality to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Kat.
My name is Kat. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I am a pretty new follower of the Minimalists, and I was getting so much value out of the public podcast that I decided to become a private podcast member. I am 31, and the house that I've been renting, I moved in when I was 22, so I've lived there for almost a decade, which is, I realize, kind of rare for someone my age. I know most of my friends and family have moved around a lot, but I really have loved being kind of steady and stable where I am. The thing is my place has been so comforting and so safe, and has been such a sanctuary for me throughout my 20s. And, my landlord lives in the other half of the duplex, and he's been great. He, makes sure I'm safe. He takes care of things when they're broken. I'm actually really close with his family. I babysit his daughter sometimes, and he deducts it from my rent. And so I've just developed such an attachment to this place that I've been living in for almost a decade, almost a third of my life, that it's hard for me to let go of it. And I am ready for a change. I'm ready to move to a different city about an hour away. I want to be closer to my partner. I want to hopefully own a home. That's kind of the goal. Although there's a possibility I may have to rent for a little while longer before I can buy. But yeah, the idea of changing, and I'm really attached to my place, like my physical house, the idea of somebody else living in it. It's no, this is my house. I have 3 cats that I've become, obviously they'll come with me, but this has been their home too, and they're basically my children. And I'm having a really hard time letting go, and I'm ready to move. I'm ready to move on. And I used to think that the problem was all the stuff I had accumulated was the main reason I was anxious about moving. But as I've, started to follow you all and started to declutter, I started to realize that it's not so much the stuff. Getting rid of stuff has been really easy. It's actually detaching and letting go of the place, the physical place I'm in, and also just the uncertainty of what if this new, wherever I end up, is not as safe or secure, or, if I end up having to rent, what if I have a landlord that's not as accommodating and not as, present and attentive and safe, or treats me like family, or what if, I can't buy, so I have to do that. And, I just think of all these what ifs, but I also think about the fact that I'm ready for a change. I'm ready for something new. I work remotely, so moving is not really going to affect my work life very much. So I just was hoping for some guidance and anything that might help me make this transition and let go of my home and move to a new one.
Kat, I'm going to tell you something I think you already know. Letting go is difficult. but clinging creates more difficulties. Now, you probably recognize that with your stuff. And she even said, like, I had an easier time getting rid of the stuff. Of course you did in the rear view. It's always easy that now that that's in the past. But in the moment, I'm sure there were some things that were relatively easy to let go of. And some things where it's like, oh, I know I have an attachment, an irrational attachment to this thing, but I'm having trouble letting it go. And eventually, something changed. The thing didn't change. You didn't change, but the story you were telling yourself about the thing changed. If I get rid of this, I'll free up more space. Or, maybe I don't actually use this as much as I thought I did. Or, you know what? I was holding on to this just in case, but I've had it for 3 years and I haven't used it in the last 2.5 years. And I'm going to give myself permission to let go, because letting go means what? Well, only you get to decide what that what is. What are the benefits for you? Right now, you can't see the benefits of moving outweighing the benefits of staying for you. Well, why is that? Because of the fear of the unknown. But of course, every fear is the fear of the unknown. There's really no fear of the known, because even if you have a fear of the known, there's some unknown behind that known. And so every fear that you are experiencing is a fear of the unknown. And so that's what terrifies you now. It's what terrifies people when they're letting go of the stuff. What if? Those two words came up again and again and again. What if this happens? What if that happens? Yes, a million hypothetical things can happen. There's no reason to be worried about those things. You can bring up legitimate concerns that might steer you in the correct direction, but you can bring up a million what ifs that will merely paralyze you, because you'll be paralyzed by fear. TK, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. To build on that, the question is not, will you let go? The question is, what will you let go? Because either you'll let go of what's holding you back, or by refusing to let that go, you'll let go of the life of possibility that's calling you forward. And that's the problem with clinging. When you cling to the stuff that's weighing you down, you compromise the stuff that makes you come alive. And I would ask, what is the vision that makes me come alive? What is it that compels me, not from a place of necessity, not from a place of familiarity, but what is it that compels me in the sense that it beckons me to a life of adventure? It summons me to bring forth what is within me. It drives me to be who I know I was born to be. I'll tell you, when we left Charleston, it was incredibly difficult. Most people, in fact, hardly anyone even ask about it, because they just assume that since we lived in California before, we're like so much happier about the geography now. But over the 4 years of living there, we fell in love with it, man. We fell in love with our place and our neighborhood and our community and so on. And I genuinely felt like the place we lived is a place I could retire. I could live there for the rest of my life and be happy. And I think my wife would agree with me. We didn't leave because we were unhappy with where we were. We left because there is the passion and the curiosity towards something that is unknown. And you know what's funny? Speaking from the other side, I can honestly say without any sense of loss, I like the place that we lived in much better than the place we live in now. And the place we live in now, I'm grateful for it. But I like the place we live in better. I think it looked nicer. I think it felt nicer. I like the old neighborhood. I'm grateful for where we are now. And even then, I can say a life of freedom from regret is possible, even when you still like some of the things you left behind a little bit more than some of the things you move forward to. Because it's not about the place that you lived or the neighborhood you lived in or the neighbors that you had alone. It's also about the possibilities that you wanted to call forth from your own soul. And if you just compare a familiar place that you know works for you with a complete unknown, right? When it comes to that unknown, you're going to be able to think about every possible problem, a possible landlord that you might not like. And there's no way you can prove that that's not going to happen, right? A possible neighbor that you might not like. There's no way you can prove that that won't happen. And you have all of those things known in your current situation. So the unknown is almost always going to lose. But let's just assume that this place you're living is the nicest place you're ever going to be, and you're going to like the new place and the new landlord and the new neighbor a little bit less. Is that what you're living your life for? Are you living your life to make sure that you avoid ever having a neighbor that's not perfect or a landlord that's not perfect? If that's all your life is about, by all means stay. But is there anything more? Is there something that you want to bring forth from your soul that might be worth risking a neighbor that you don't know? I want you to have the best neighbors in the world. I want you to have the best landlord if that's what you're going to have. But at the end of the day, life is about who you want to be. It's about how you want to show up. It's about what you want to explore. It's about the adventure that you want to create. And I wouldn't let having all of my questions answered about the place I'm currently in hold me back from getting those questions that are still burning in my heart answered. You got to get those questions answered, because if you don't, that's what regret is.
Man, breaking up is hard. I mean, I'll tell you what, I think about relationships in my life, and even when they were pernicious and I knew they weren't good, I was still clinging, and it took me a while to let go. This is the opposite, because she doesn't want to leave. She likes where she's at. This isn't a pernicious place.
Right.
So I agree with you, TK, about getting clear on what her vision is. Like, it's always okay to run away from something as long as you know what you're running towards. And that analogy doesn't quite fit here, because she's not running away from this. She's moving on to bigger and better potential possibilities. That what if, Milburn, it makes me think of the essay that we have on our website about, what's the best that can happen. And all those what ifs, we just put all these negative scenarios in, and we start to get, make ourselves scared and paranoid, and we don't ever consider what's actually the best thing that could happen. Yeah,
what if I really enjoy this 300% more? We don't ask that question. It's just, what if my landlord isn't kind to me?
Right. Yeah.
And part of that is what we're focusing on, right?
Absolutely.
You often hear me talk about my neighbors on both sides who are awesome. Literally on the left side of me, it's like these peacenik hippies who are amazing, wonderful people. And then we have like some conservative Christians on the right side of me. And these people get along so well with each other. It's beautiful. And then across the street from us, we have what might be considered a dysfunctional family. Probably not as dysfunctional as the family Ryan or I grew up in. But I don't focus on what's going on over there, even though the police will show up occasionally and there's yelling from time to time, or one of the boyfriends comes by and they're in the street getting into arguments.
Oh, wow.
I don't focus on that as much, because I know that I have these other things. What if my neighbors here and here are awesome? Or what if the neighbors across the street? Because here's the truth. It doesn't really affect me either way. What does affect me is the story I tell myself about it. And I like what you're saying here, Ryan. It's not even a breakup with the place. She's graduating.
Yeah.
And so, Kat, you're graduating from this apartment. And it's beautiful. I remember the second to last place I lived in Dayton, the beautiful loft space.
Oh, man, that was great.
I just saw a picture of it yesterday. For the video, Jordan, I'm going to send you this picture of me and Ryan you'll put it right here above my left shoulder. Me and Ryan, we were 29 years old, December of 2010. We were getting ready to start. We were 10 days away from starting the minimalists.com. We had been planning it for a few months. And there was a photo of us in my apartment together. And it's my favorite place I've ever lived. It's
beautiful.
Still to this day, still my favorite place.
Yeah.
And it was $900 a month.
Yeah, I know.
This massive, beautiful loft, downtown Dayton, Ohio. And yet I left there. Why? Well, a couple reasons. One is getting out of debt was really compelling to me. Leaving the corporate world was compelling to me. And so I couldn't even afford the $900 a month. So I found an apartment that was $500 a month in Dayton. And then eventually Ryan and I left Dayton to go explore more. And I really enjoyed the last apartment I lived in Dayton. And that was wonderful. Then we moved to this cabin on the side of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't our intent to stay there for very long. We were there for like 5 months.
Yeah.
And then we were gone. We went to the next place. It was about moving forward, was much more compelling to me than holding on to this place. And I think that's the problem with nostalgia. Nostalgia becomes a 2D rose-colored rear view.
Yes.
Everything was perfect and beautiful in that apartment, in that lot, whatever it was. That's the story I tell myself.
Yeah.
But I could tell myself that same story about what's coming next.
Yeah. That nostalgia keeps us stuck in a lot of ways. Like my favorite place that I ever lived in was the one that Mariah and I lived in right before we left Missoula, that like studio loft. It had nice big windows, mountains.
Stunning views.
Stunning views. I mean, absolutely stunning views. And I think about that place a lot. And I don't know if I definitely miss it, but I don't dwell on missing that place. And sometimes I look back, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have subletted it and at least had an opportunity to move back in there. But I know that for me and Mariah to move on from that place, like there's so much more for us out there, especially, here in LA. Like there's so much more that I'm willing to kind of let go of the love or the really, really strong like that I had for that place. So Kat, it's all about that perspective. What are you going to obtain, or what do you have the chance of obtaining by moving away from this place? And that is, that's what I would say focus on.
One quick closing comment for me for Kat is trust yourself. I think one of the dangers of looking at a situation like it's the best that you'll ever do is that it overlooks the magic of you that brought all of those things together and even made that experience possible. You don't have a good landlord independently of the kind of person that you are and the way in which you impacted that landlord. You think that landlord allows you to babysit their kids independently of who you are and how you show up? That says something about the magic of you. And so many times we find ourselves in these awesome spaces, experiencing these awesome things, and we think this is the best that it's ever going to be, completely overlooking, completely discounting the fact that it's so awesome right now because of the kind of person that we are. When you move on, you can recreate the magic that uniquely comes from you in other places too. Never doubt your ability to create magic in places that are different from where you've already been.
And that magic is often far more compelling than what she said with being steady. Like, I understand you want some level of certainty, but the certainty doesn't come from your home alone. By the way, that kind of certainty is also a misnomer, because the person who owns the apartment you're in right now could decide to sell the building, jack up the rent so that's not affordable. They could say they want a different tenant because they have a family member who's sick and they need to take care of them. These are a bunch of what ifs you could tell yourself about your current place. Well, I don't think those are empowering what ifs, but you see your place, as you said, as a sanctuary. And Kat, the cool thing about a sanctuary is there isn't just one sanctuary. You can find the things that make your current home your sanctuary, and you can tweeze those out, and you can carry that with you. It could be physical things. It could be something about the time and location. It could be the proximity to the places you want to go in your neighborhood. But whatever makes your home your sanctuary, you can recreate that. It's just like, TK, when you moved here and you found a new church, it was like, well, I can only go to the one back in Charleston. That wouldn't make any sense. You would feel discontent around that. But you said, well, I can find a new one. And maybe I'll like it more, maybe I'll like it less. That comparison isn't really helpful either. What is helpful is understanding that limiting mindset of the sanctuary is only here where I'm living, and you can let go of that. The story that I was telling a moment ago, and Ryan and I were just talking about, we wrote about in our book, Everything That Remains. And so, Kat, I'd love to send you a copy of Everything That Remains, because what I just told you was sort of an attenuated version of letting go of place, letting go of the chains of that particular place, because it was really comforting. They were gold-plated chains, handcuffs that I was attached to, right? And as soon as I feel that attachment so deep that I feel like I need to cling to this thing, that is a sign for me to loosen my grip. And once I loosen my grip, that's often a sign that it's okay to let go, because in order to move on, I'm going to have to let go. So, Kat, if you enjoy our podcast, I think you'll enjoy the audiobook version of Everything That Remains. Or if you want the book or the ebook version, Malabama will send one of those to you as well.
I just want to say, Kat, thank you so much for being a patron. That's awesome. I'm so glad we add that much value to your life.
Speaking of time, Ryan, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round where we answer your questions from TikTok because
the people on TikTok are very mad, Ryan.
we're so cool. We're so cool being TikTokers. Why are they mad on TikTok?
I'll tell you later during our
I'm on the edge of my seat. Okay.
Yeah, during the Talk Aboutable segment, we'll talk about that. Now, during the lightning round, this is where Ryan, TK, and I answer your questions in less than 60 seconds. We do our best to give you something pithy, a short, shareable answer that we copy and paste in the show notes over at theminimalists.com/podcast so you can copy and share our pithy answers on social media if you like. Looks like we have a question here today from Jay-Z.
I don't think wanting nice things always equals feelings of inadequacy. Excessive acquiring, yes, I can see that. But what's wrong with wanting one nice thing?
You know I like fancy things.
Let's throw 60 seconds on the clock for Ryan Nicodemus.
All right, let's do it. A life is enhanced, not defined by our possessions. So the ownership of something doesn't make you adequate or inadequate. I think the essence of this question is, why does desiring something nice, why does that make them inadequate? I don't think it does. And Josh and I would never make anyone feel bad for wanting a fancy thing. The question is why do you want that thing? And, what are you willing to give up for that thing? So let's say you want a nice car. That's great. Get a nice car. If you're really passionate about a car, go ahead and get a nice car if you can afford it. Now, if you can't afford it and you tell yourself, oh man, I'm going to have to work 80 hours a week for the next 5 years to get this car. I don't know if I can commit to that. Well, then maybe that is where, you've got to kind of fall back and maybe question whether or not that purchase is correct, because now you're giving up your time for that car. So the question isn't, again, if you're adequate or inadequate with your possessions. It's really about what's your relationship with those possessions? Or what's your relationship with the desire for those possessions? Man, I almost had it.
Nah, man, that's good, man. That's good. Don't let the buzzer worry you. I never worry about that buzzer. If I need 3 minutes, I take
That's right. That's right.
We got another shot clock for TK Coleman.
Minimalism isn't about right versus wrong. It's about what's right for me versus what's wrong for me. When I was a little boy, my mom had me doing some chores in the house, and I remember looking out the window, and I saw some of the other kids in the neighborhood running around playing. And I said, Mom, what about them? What about them? Don't they have chores to do? And she said, worry about your story, son. You don't know their story. There's no faster way to make your own story miserable than by becoming preoccupied with other people's story in an effort to moralize them and what they do. You don't know their story. You don't know what they need and why they need it. You don't know what they need to get rid of and why they need to get rid of it. Minimalism isn't about moralizing about how many possessions other people have. It's about taking a look at your life and saying, how can I optimize for the joy that I want to feel, for the adventure that I want to experience? Nothing less.
Man, you got it. You got it. That was great, man. That was great. Right on a minute.
The way he was looking at me the whole time.
How was he looking at you? Like, come on, TK, pass the ball.
Got James Harden over here.
Oh man, and what he was saying makes me think of, I've seen bios before where it's like, you know me, not my story.
By the way, this feels like Harden. I'm just going through my legs, desperately looking for a shot. No idea where I'm going. I just chuck it up when that buzzer goes off.
I got some words for Jay-Z. Give me 60 seconds. So, enjoying a thing creates wonder. Needing a thing creates worry. And so if you're asking about what's the problem with wanting a nice thing, no problem with wanting it. But as soon as you feel like you're incomplete without it, then what? You need it to complete you. And therefore, that needing has created a sort of prison of worry in your life. Because when you get the thing eventually, if you do get it, now there'll be a whole new set of worry because I need this thing. It makes it much more difficult to enjoy it. And without that joy, you don't have the wonder of the experience that thing was meant for in the first place. By the way, you can follow The Minimalists on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. @The Minimalists is our handle over there. We'll check in with our Patreon live stream here in a moment. But first, real quick, for right here, right now, here's one thing that's going on in the life of The Minimalists. Sunday Symposium is back, y'all.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
We need like a little sound effect like, hallelujah. Handel's Messiah or something.
That's good.
Yes.
We had 4 sold-out events last year, and we're moving it to quarterly right now. So our next one is March 26th. Only 200 seats. I think there are only a few dozen seats left at this point. But you can just check there, sundaysymposium.com. I will tell you this, last time we announced it on the podcast, they went pretty quickly. And so you can get your tickets right now, sundaysymposium.com. It's a live event, a gathering of open-minded, dogma-free people. I don't care what your religion is, what your background is, what your age is, what your socioeconomic level is, what your level of understanding or education is. And
whether you listen to R&B or not.
Well, you have to listen to R&B.
Well, do you think Michael Jordan's better or worse than LeBron James?
There will be a quiz afterward. But these events have been truly magical. We, on Christmas last year, we released one of the events. So if you want a taste of that event, it was called How to Let Go. It was our 4th Sunday Symposium, our first one of the year. And I don't know, it could be our last one. It could always be the last one. And so don't put it off. If you've really wanted to go to one of these and they sold out, you couldn't get tickets beforehand. Yeah. Now's your opportunity. 200 seats, and then it's completely full. sundaysymposium.com. We'll do a live talk, a discussion. There'll be some music beforehand, a lot of joy, some hugs afterward.
Is Nicodemus doing any stand-up comedy for this one?
Polka, I thought.
Yeah, polka. Yeah, learning how to play accordion now.
With the juggling act.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Don't challenge me like that, TK.
It's just a request.
No, that's funny.
So if you've been wanting to see The Minimalists live, you want to see the 3 of us live, sundaysymposium.com, March 26th, Sunday at noon. You can get your tickets right now. Alabama, let's check in with the Patreon live stream. What do you got for us?
We have a question, or rather a comment here from Heather Walsh. She said, "Hi, I just wanted to thank you for the excellent audio quality of the podcast. I have unsubscribed to countless podcasts because they seem to be recorded through Skype or underwater, and I'm extremely sensitive to irritating sounds. I grew up in the radio industry. My dad was a broadcaster, and he taught me to appreciate sound. Your podcast is the gold standard. It is crystalline, and I love it for that as much as I love your content. Oh, also, I've been a fan since 2012. You guys have always been awesome, and you changed my life for the better. But adding TK was the best thing you could have done. Not only does he have a voice like butter, but I also agree with every word he utters."
Oh, what a rhyme.
Oh, man.
She goes on to say, "I truly appreciate a perspective that does not focus just on stoicism. Thank you all so much for what you do. You are adding more value to lives than you know."
Well, I want to disagree because I don't agree with everything TK says. But I also know TK well enough to know that he doesn't agree with everything that he says. He's willing to be active-minded enough to change his mind, even about his own beliefs.
Hey, well, I do agree with these words. I love you so much. Thank you so much for that comment.
Yeah.
Hugs from the heart.
Yeah.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Awesome.
Heather, thank you. And also a big shout out to Post-Production Peter, Professor Sean, and Podcast Sean, who all make the audio sound crystalline.
Yeah. What a great compliment. Because you have no idea how much Josh and those men work on the sound quality. So, it wasn't just stroking TK's ego. It was also stroking Josh's ego. And it deserves to be stroked. Can I say that on air?
Just go no further.
Speaking of, I know that Heather said that the sounds annoy her. I agree with a lot of podcasts that they're not really podcasts or shows. They're recorded Zoom calls, essentially.
Yeah.
Or underwater. We should move our studio to underwater.
Now live from underwater.
Yeah, there are so many, even like there are multi-million-dollar podcasts that sound like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for noticing that. I will say this, she mentioned the annoying sounds. I've had a few people mention the buzzer being a bit disruptive. We might need to find like a nice gong or something.
Oh, I like the gong
that's
idea.
So zen.
Yeah.
They should do that in basketball as well. Change it to a gong.
We'll find something a bit more gentle, starting with the next episode, Professor Sean. In the meantime, sorry about the buzzers if that annoyed anyone. I know that we'll get it mixed in there in post-production so that it's not too annoying. Let's do one more question from the live stream, Alabama.
Here's a question from Dan. Can you offer your advice on item replacement in terms of balancing environmental cost and fair trade manufacturing while ensuring the item will fulfill its requirement without compromise or repurchase?
I'm reminded of everyone's been sending this Jerry Seinfeld stand-up joke to us. I was going to review it on a Talk Aboutable segment on the private podcast, but we might as well talk about it right now. He has this, actually, in fact, Professor Sean, I'm sure he can pull it up really quick, and then we can actually talk about the joke itself, because here's what happens. I understand the concern for the environment, but when we've purchased the thing, we've done much of the damage to the environment that we're worried about. And so one of the unexpected benefits of minimalism for me was by consuming 90% less, I probably produce 90 to 95% less waste. That was not my intention when I started simplifying my life. It was much more for me. But then the benefits rippled in all of these other areas. Let's check out this quick joke from Jerry Seinfeld, and then we can talk about it.
We'll throw anything out at any time. Where's the wedding album? I thought you were done with it. And that was wrong. I admit that now. Those are special memories, and they're gone now. But the point is this. All things on Earth only exist in different stages of becoming garbage. Your home is a garbage processing center where you buy new things, bring them into your house, and slowly crapify them over time. Objects start the highest level, visible in a living area. From there, it goes down to a closet, cupboard, or drawer. That's why we have those, so we don't have to see all of the huge mistakes we have made. From the closet, it goes to the garage, one of the longest phases in trashification. No object has ever made it out of the garage and back into the house. Or a personal storage unit. This is the saddest of all. Now, instead of free garbage, you pay rent to visit your garbage.
It's almost as though he's conjuring the ghost of George Carlin here.
Yes.
But he has this new take on it. And yes, it is true that very rarely do we go store something in one of these areas. We hide our stuff because there's this slight sense of shame. Like, I bought this, it isn't doing what I thought it would do, or maybe it did what I thought it would do, but it's not continuing to do it in perpetuity. So I'm going to hide it away in the closet. I'm going to hide it in the basement. I'm going to hide it in the attic. I'm going to hide it in the garage or the storage locker. Very rarely do those things make a new appearance in our home. Do we pull them back out and say, now's the day where I begin to get value from this thing again?
Yeah. Well, there's something about throwing it away that makes us feel the loss, right? So if I put it in the garage, I feel like I spent a lot of money on that, and I'm still kind of being responsible, getting some theoretical value out of it by virtue of my ability to imagine some future day when I might use it. But once you throw it away, you got to admit to yourself the truth that was already true at the time you bought it. It's a loss.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as you take it off the shelf, like the damage is done.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, I always said it in this way, like, hey, if you take something off the shelf, it's slowly decomposing. Now it's just decomposing at your place. And then when you put it in a landfill, which actually helps it decompose a little faster, I mean, if that's the end result, well, then the landfill's actually, the place for it. But yeah, no, that's a great bit. That must be from, how long ago was that, I wonder? Seems like a pretty new one. Yeah.
No idea. We'll check back in with the live stream here in a little bit. But first, Malabam, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'm calling from Maryland. I really just wanted to give a comment. I have listened to your podcast for about a year and have enjoyed many of them. Thank you. And I also just wanted to make a comment in reference to family, friends, and gifts. My granddaughter will be 4 in August, and my Gen Y daughter is a budding minimalist, and as a result of that is trying to reduce the number of gifts coming into her home. So she did an invitation and indicated that there could be donations made to the NICU, which my granddaughter resided in for a brief period of time after her birth, or give a donation to her college fund. We were discussing the backlash that she received from people that she worked with who came up to her and told her that she was denying her child a childhood, and a variety of other rather negative responses. I'm proud of my daughter. She's holding tight and holding fast and will continue to use this option for my granddaughter's birthday. But it was interesting to actually see this firsthand as opposed to just, hearing about it on the podcast.
Yes, that is our minimal episode for today. We'll see you on Patreon for the full 2.5 hour, I think almost 3 hour maximal edition of episode 378, which includes a million more questions from our listeners, a private minimalist home tour. You'll take a shocking tour of my living room.
You'll never believe what this minimalist owns.
Quite literally, that's actually true. Not clickbait. Also, our notorious obsolete object segment, TK's Tweet of the Week, an outstanding added value segment that we enjoyed a bit too much.
I wonder what it is.
Oh, my goodness.
Plus, we got much, much more of less. And if you want to hear all that, check out the Minimalist private podcast at patreon.com/theminimalist, or click the link in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain access to all of our podcast archives. That's right, all of our archives are now on Patreon, all the way back to episode 001. And this is a sequential show. You have to catch up. It's serialized. You have to start with episode 1.
Yeah, if you start with this episode, you're just, there's so much plot that you're missing.
Actually, I totally disagree. I would work your way backward.
Yeah.
And so I'm joking, obviously, but start with the more recent episodes. If you want to dive into the archives, they're all available for you over there at Patreon. That is our show for today. If you leave here today with just one message, please let it be this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.